Hey Outlouders, and welcome to another episode of Pammy Out Loud. I'm your host, Pammy, and I'm here today to talk to you about something that is deeply personal and very profound to me, and that is my relationship with alcohol and my decision to quit drinking. I've had difficulty pressing the record button because not that it's hard for me to talk about this, but because it's so important to me to get it right that I hesitate in starting the conversation. I will tell you this will be a conversation that will be ongoing throughout many episodes of my podcast because it'll be a running theme. And I say not because I'm trying to convert anybody, but to share something that was very important and impactful for me and brought up a lot of questions that I believe lots of women and men both have as they ponder their relationship with alcohol throughout the years. I stopped drinking in November of 2019. And let me tell you a little bit about the lead up to that. A lot of times people want to know what kind of drinker was I, and how did I come to the decision that I needed to quit drinking? So today I'm going to introduce the topic with answering those questions for you. Just know that I will have many other episodes woven throughout this podcast, and I hope that you will engage in the conversation with me. If you're curious, let me know what you're thinking about and what other things you'd like for me to talk out loud. What topics that I throw out to you that resonate. What issues that are you experiencing as, we discuss this? So what happened for me, I was raised in a household where alcohol was not a big deal. In fact, my parents hardly drank. I think my dad he'd have a 6-pack of beer in the refrigerator all summer long, and I think it was the same 6-pack. He would drink a beer maybe when he'd come in from the golf course on Sunday, maybe. And they also had that mysterious cabinet of liquor above the refrigerator with the big decanters and whatnot in them, that were used when you were at parties. Maybe they'd have a party once a year where those fancy things came down. But it wasn't something that neither my mother nor my father really partook much in. So I didn't have that as an example or as an issue for myself growing up. Went off to college, experimented with a lot of alcohol when I was in college, no more than I think most college kids probably do. And then when we got married, we started having babies pretty quick, and alcohol was definitely not a part of our life at that point. We were busy raising children, and they demanded our full attention. This was long before what we now experience as, I think, the mommy wine culture that you hear a lot of people talk about. But it really wasn't something that became an issue and more common in my life until, I don't know, maybe my 40s. And what happened for me is, I went from being, as a weekend drinker to I'd come in the door from my job at school and I'd open a bottle of wine and have a glass. And I had a lot of social drinking. I ran with, I think our friends were very, I don't want to say alcohol centric, but alcohol was a big part of how we gathered and partied and celebrated together. And it became very commonplace. For me, my alcohol progression kind of continued as into my 40s, as I was in my 40s and 50s, and when my children were more self-sufficient and didn't need me to pick them up and do those things, I think alcohol became more of a priority for me in my life. I never really thought a lot about it, but I will say it did frequently come up. It was something that I would think about from time to time of, I think I drink too much. Now, people will often ask me, well, how much did you drink? And I will tell you the answer to that question when I finally got around to stopping. But I want to be really careful about how I don't like to answer that question right away, because I think is one of those questions that when people ask you, how much were you drinking? They are looking at it as a measuring stick, or should I say a measuring cup, for their own alcohol consumption. I know this because I did it too, right? Oh, I'm not as bad as she is. I don't drink as much as he does. I only drink two margaritas, whatever the case is. When you ask somebody, how much were you drinking? It becomes this ability for you to be very dismissive of your own drinking. And that was certainly true for me. So I will say, though, I knew I was drinking too much, and I didn't do anything about it. It was not something, I just thought, yeah, you really ought to do something. And I never even did 30-day, dry January. I never did any of those things. I didn't try to do anything about it, but I did Google a lot. How much is too much for a 5'6", 125-pound woman? How much is too much if you're 58 years old? How much? I did all of those kind of Google searches. Am I an alcoholic? I'd sat there at the keyboard. Let me just tell you something. If you are Googling, am I an alcoholic? Do I have a problem with alcohol? Let me tell you, the answer is yes. Because people that don't have those problems are not Googling those things. That is one of the standard go-tos in our sober-minded community. Is like, that is not something most people Google. If you have a problem and you say, am I drinking too much? You probably are. You are probably drinking too much. So what caused me, I'm going to say I looked at my drinking for a long time without doing anything about it. And I had this belief system that you were either a drinker or you weren't. And if you weren't a drinker, it was because you were an alcoholic, you had a medical condition, or you were pregnant, or you had some religious conviction about it. That was the either you had those things or you drank. And if you had one of those things, you really wanted to drink too. That's what I believed. I just believed everybody wanted to drink. I did not believe that there were people out there that enjoyed their life without alcohol. It was not my experience. And I thought, this is something that everybody does, or everybody wishes that they could do, right? So for me, I had thought about my drinking for a long time, but I hadn't done anything about it. And I also had this belief system that you were either an alcoholic and you went to AA, or you went to rehab and you had to give it all up, or, you were a, quote, normal drinker. I don't even know what a normal drinker is. I'm just going to say that. What is a normal drinker? I think that normal, I'm not even sure what a normal drinker is. I'm just going to put that out there. So what happened for me, though, what was really the turning point was, I'm trying to think, maybe the summers 2018, 2019, sometime in there. I did a group diet and exercise program. There's this wonderful book called Game On, and it is a team approach to getting healthy. And what you do is you get on teams, and there's all these different things that you do. It's a 30-day program, and you have to drink a lot of water, and you have to exercise, and you have to get your sleep, and you have to work on a good habit and give up a bad habit. There's all these different components of it. And you get points, and you have team pressure in order to do well with it. And it is really a great program. And I'll put the book in my show notes because I have played the game many times with many different people, and I always get really good results with it. The food part of it is pretty easy to do. It's a whole food type approach. But here's the kicker to it. And this is what really got to me. You can't drink alcohol for the 30 days. Now, you can have cheat days, so that's a whole nother kind of thing to explain. But, the cheat days, and on the cheat days, you could have as much alcohol as you wanted. So what you find yourself doing, or what I found myself doing, is like, I could do everything related to the Game On program I was exercising. I was lifting weights. I was doing all the stuff I was supposed to do. And I was jonesing for a glass of wine. I wanted my wine. And I was just so struck by the fact that I could not stop thinking about the alcohol. I didn't have any problems cutting calories or doing anything else, but I was annoyed at how much I wanted to drink. So anyway, it was really striking to me, and the thing that got to me was I did not want to be controlled by any substance. And I started to realize how much my thinking was controlled by drinking and how I planned my life around it. I didn't really think that I did, but I would not be things like I'd come in the door from school, I'd open a bottle of wine, and I'd be sitting there with my Cabernet. And if Brian was coming home from the airport, he would have to catch a Uber. Or, because I was so committed to my wine and it was so important to me. Or he would go out with some friends to live music. He loves live music. My husband loves him some live music. And that's not really my huge scene. Big crowds and lots of music isn't my scene. So a lot of times I would pass, but I would say, "Oh, I'll drop you off at the venues, but don't count on me to pick you up because I want to go home and I want to drink my bottle of wine." And so it was becoming. What I realized is I had a real priority on being able to consume that alcohol to the point that when I was not drinking it, I was very, very aware of how annoyed I was. I mean, that's the only way I can put it. I was annoyed that I wasn't drinking. I felt left out. I felt like, I was like, what should I do this week? If I can't go to happy hour because couldn't possibly sit there and drink something else. If they're drinking margaritas or whatever, I couldn't do that. And this really bothered me. So my habit, like I said, was to come in the door, open a bottle of wine, sit there here's the answer to your question. How much was I drinking? I was averaging a bottle a day. I was a bottle a day Cabernet. That's what I said. Bottle a day. Bad girl. That's what I said. So that's what I was drinking. And I know this because H-E-B sells the 6-packs for a discount. 6 bottles, you get a discount. And that was my week's worth. And, I also supplemented it wasn't always a bottle a day of wine because sometimes I'm around the lake and I'm drinking beer and I'm drinking margaritas and other things. So yeah, my drinking had gotten up there. And, it was interesting. So here I am. I'm very aware that I am jonesing for these drinks. And about that time, I'm coming in the door every day. I'm opening up my Cabernet. I sit on the couch and I'm sucking it down. And one night, and I will never forget this. I would typically start drinking my wine when I got in the door. And, then after dinner, I'm sitting on the couch, usually dozing off. It's 8:30 or 9 o'clock because you just don't have a lot of energy when you're drinking a bottle of red wine every night. And I would doze off, usually would be watching something, and then I'd wake up 30 or 45 minutes later and decide it was time to go to bed. And so I was getting up and I was tidying up the room and folding up the blanket and all that kind of stuff. And I walked into the kitchen, turned off the TV, walked into the kitchen, and I noticed that the bottle was sitting there on the counter. And it's had maybe, I don't know, an inch and a half of red wine still in the bottle, right? And I thought, oh, that can't go to waste. I poured it in a glass and I practically shot it. And all of a sudden I thought, holy shit, that is screwed up, right? I have literally been asleep on the couch for 45 minutes. I am on my way to the bedroom. I am on my way to brush my teeth and go to bed. And instead of putting a cork on it, or heaven forbid, just dumping it down the kitchen sink, I had to guzzle it like it was water at a marathon race. It got my attention. So all of these things are happening at about the same time, right? I've had this game on experience where I've had this real revelation that I'm jonesing for alcohol. I have this moment of watching television where I go, holy smokes, what is this that I'm now officially committed to drinking a bottle a day. Like I can't go to bed without it. And it was messed up. It was just messed up. So that had all happened. And I have my journal from, I'm a journaler, and I actually have my journal from that time in my life and things that I was thinking about and working on, and a book that I was reading. And there's some really interesting notes in there about how this all kind of coalesced into this moment. But one night I'm sitting on the couch drinking my Cabernet, and I'm on my laptop scrolling through my Facebook feed, and all of a sudden in pops this message from Sober Sis. And this beautiful woman, about my age, young, I don't know how old she was. She's actually younger than me. I think everybody's my age unless they're way younger than me. But she pops up and she says, "Hey, sis, do you want to change your relationship with alcohol? If you do," and she starts talking, and I'm sitting there thinking, yes, I believe I do. And, she was offering this online program for $99, 21 days, change your relationship with alcohol. And as I had my glass in my hand and my credit card in my other hand and my laptop in my lap, I paid my $99 and signed up. Now, it was a program, and all of this will be in my show notes, and you'll hear me talk about Sober Sis a lot, but it was a program that starts on the 1st of each month. So I sign up, and it's several weeks before the 1st of each month. Before the 1st of the month. So this is October of 2019. Now, my take on, I'm going to start this on November 1st. That's when the program starts, right? So I'm going to start this on November 1st. So I've got 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks, whatever it was. And I thought, I better drink up. And I act like I'm going on a diet and I'm binging on gallons of ice cream, right? Like I decide that not only am I going to drink, I need to hit it hard, right? It sounds so ridiculous, but this is really what I was doing. So a few days before the 1st of the month, when the program's going to start, I go to happy hour with a couple of my girlfriends that I were coworkers with, and we are sitting there, and I'm drinking, and I get really emotional, and I start crying, and I'm oversharing about my issues of the moment. And I got home from that, and I drove home from that. That's another thing. I'm embarrassed to say that I drove way too many times when I'm sure I was over the limit, right? It doesn't really take that much to be over the limit. You think that I'm sure there are times when I didn't even feel like I was, and I was over the limit. You know what I mean? But I drove home that night, and I just thought, this is bullshit. Like, what am I doing? And I need to stop right now. That was October 27th or 26th, 2019. And that was the last time I drank alcohol. I've had sips since then. I want to be perfectly transparent about my journey, but that was the last time I poured myself a drink. And on November 1st, I started the Sober Sis program, which is an email-based program, but it also puts you in community with other women online through an app called Marco Polo, which is kind of like a voice texting video. It's voice texting video app. So you can be in a group, much like you can be in a message group, a text message group with people. So it allowed people to come together and have conversations with each other without, whatever time zone you were in. It didn't really matter. So you could watch somebody's post, when you got up in the morning, even if they made it in, a different time zone, different time. You could read it much like a text message, I'd say. So anyway, you would do this. and this online community, and then you'd get these emails. And I started to learn about my drinking. I started to learn about alcohol. I started to read quit lit books. For those of you that are not in the sober community, quit lit is the genre of books that are dedicated to stopping alcohol and your relationship with alcohol and all that good stuff. So I started putting my hands on all things quit lit, reading lots of things, and learning. Also, at the time, Sober Sis had a Facebook group. They now have a dedicated website to it. But at the time, we were on Facebook, and people were sharing their experiences. And what would happen is people would say, I was seeing all this conversation about completely giving up alcohol. And I thought, I'm not doing that. I am not giving up alcohol. I just want to change my relationship with alcohol. I am not interested in completely quitting. My thought process was, I'm going to go through this 21 days. I'm going to do a little reset, and then I'll return to some form of moderation down the line. And all of a sudden, I'm hearing people talk about quitting permanently. And I thought, bait and switch. That's what I thought. I thought, this is not what I want. But I was already into it, and I'm already experiencing the changes in my thinking and ultimately the choices that I was going to make. So anyway, this program was life-changing for me. It was the best $99 that I ever have spent. It has changed me in profound ways and giving me the tools to live my life alcohol-free in a way that I am deeply proud of. And what removing alcohol does, I'm going to say does for me, I think it does for everybody. It reveals the work that you need to do. It reveals the work you need to do. So that is ongoing, right? That is an ongoing journey that never, ever stops. It's very exciting. It's very painful. It's very enlightening and enriching and life-enhancing. That's all I can say. I will tell you that quitting drinking for me has been the single most important thing that I have done in my life as an adult. For my mental health, physical health, emotional health. And the main reason I feel that way is I like myself now. And I didn't before. I didn't even realize how much I didn't until I got clear of all this. I want to tell y'all that and this is really important, I am not here to tell anybody else what to do. I am here to tell you what I did and what my experience was, and to hopefully I will share with you some people that I have met along the way that have inspired and encouraged me and lifted me up in ways that I can never repay them. For each person, it is a deeply personal choice, right? And well, you remember when I said at the beginning, it's like, I'm not here to tell anybody else what to do. And it's funny because people will come up to me and say, you must think I drink too much. I've had that said to me. I've had friends, I've had people that ask me questions about it and say, oh, well, you must think I drink too much. And I'm going to tell you this, I don't give any thought to that, or very, very little. I don't want to say I never think about it, but I really don't, because I'm not here to change anybody else. I do want to tell you this. The most important thing for me is I want to be a voice out there. And when I talk about speaking out loud, this is why it's meaningful and important to me, because when I have done it, and it's scary to talk about out loud that you're not a drinker. You want to know what's funny? When I first quit drinking alcohol, I didn't want to tell anybody I was doing it for a couple of reasons. One, it was because I was afraid that if I told them that I was, if I told them and then they're like, oh, well, she's drinking. Like, I was afraid I was going to fail. I didn't even tell Brian that I was doing it when I did the 21-day thing. I did not even tell my own husband because I was afraid of it. What if I couldn't do it? What would that say about me, right? Well, it's interesting, but what's happened is as I started to, when I quit drinking, I didn't tell anybody. And then I was afraid that if I told people I quit drinking, they would think I was an alcoholic. Now, the irony in that is, I never worried if they thought I was an alcoholic when I was drinking. But suddenly I'm worried about it. Suddenly I'm worried about they're going to think I'm an alcoholic because I don't drink alcohol anymore. And what does that mean? What would they think about that? But there's I was talking about the quit lit genre, and there is a author by the name of Laura McCowan, and she has written a book called We Are the Luckiest, and then she has since started an online community called The Luckiest Club. But in her book, We Are the Luckiest, she talks about what it means when you quit drinking and how other people react to that, right? And I have seen this firsthand, so I wanted to read to you because her words just really say it in such a beautiful way of what it means, right? So, when you, a newly sober person, walk into a room or sit at a dinner table, you are not just carrying in your own story. You are shining lots of little mirrors onto other people's stories too. Sometimes this causes a fleeting blip, a tiny disturbance felt mostly by you. And sometimes it sends shockwaves. I think that's so beautiful, and it is so true, because like the measuring stick of, well, how much are you drinking? They're comparing themselves to you. They are looking at you, and they're seeing themselves in the reflection in the glass, right? This topic is so important to me because when I have gone from not wanting to talk about it to I do share on my Instagram feed things about living my life without alcohol, quotes, positivity, messages. Those are things that I want to share. And when one person reaches out to me and says, hey, me too. Hey, can you tell me how you did it? Hey, I've been thinking these same thoughts. That makes it all of the what will people think of me go by the wayside, because I know that when I speak out loud and somebody hears my voice and it helps them come to whatever decision that they feel they need to come to, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's what this podcast, I believe, is why I'm here. I want to hopefully inspire people to look at their lives in different ways and shapes and from different angles. And I'm not again telling you to quit drinking alcohol, because maybe for you that's not the issue. We all have our thing, as Laura McCowan says. We know what our thing is. My thing is alcohol. It's funny, when I quit drinking, my oldest son said to me, Mom, were you an alcoholic? And I was caught a little off guard, and I thought, oh, I don't know, maybe I was. We're a society that likes to put labels on things, and we want to say, oh, she's an alcoholic. She needs to quit drinking. She's a problem drinker. She had a rock bottom moment. I didn't have a rock bottom moment. In fact, I used to say, I wish my hangovers had been a little worse and maybe I would have done something sooner about it. I didn't really have bad hangovers. I operated with a low-grade headache all the time, which I just attributed to poor sleeping. Never connected that the poor sleeping and the alcohol were all part and parcel of the same thing. But that's a topic for another show. When we quit drinking, you have to start feeling things, right? A lot of us numb. We don't want to feel things. We don't want to have those thoughts and the anxiety and the darkness and the sadness. And so, what I do want to share this with you is what Brene Brown says about it, which is you cannot selectively numb feelings. You cannot selectively numb feelings. You can't just numb the bad ones. You are numbing the good ones. You don't know you are. You think you're enhancing them, but you don't even realize what feelings you're numbing by the alcohol that you're taking in. There is so many things that I want to talk to you about this and that we'll share with you over the coming weeks and months. But I do want to end with this, the interesting question to ask yourself. It's not, am I bad enough? Is it bad enough for me to quit? The question is my life good enough not to? Is my life good enough not to? Life on this side of alcohol is richer and brighter and more vibrant than I ever thought it could be. It's not perfect. And and I'm not going to lie. My favorite saying, there are things about alcohol that I do miss. It wasn't all bad for me, right? I was the kind of drinker who, whatever mood I was in, it was amplified by the alcohol. So if I was in a good mood, I was fun Pam. And fun Pam could be really fun. It could also be over the top and a lot, right? When times that I thought I was super fun that other people found a little annoying. And by the same token, if I was a little bit down or angry, upset, moody, it amplified that. It led me down a path of sadness. It led me down a path of anger. It allowed me to unfilter text messages to people and things that, from my own children to friends, that I said things and shared things that I deeply wish that I hadn't, because that filter was off. There's a reason we have a filter. It's important. It's important. But it wasn't all bad. It was a lot of good things. And I didn't have a rock bottom moment. I had lots of little bumps in the road. The other thing that's really funny is you start to think, when you clean out the alcohol from your life, you start to realize the lies that you've told yourself, right? I would say, it didn't really cause me any problems. Well, I didn't have major marital problems or major work problems, all those catastrophic things, that so-called rock bottom moments. That did not happen for me. But when you get the alcohol out, it's almost like you start having these repressed memories come back to you, where you remember things that you said or that you did or that happened, which were fueled by alcohol, that you now go, ugh. Yeah. You feel embarrassed, you feel shame, you feel pain. You just do. And it's so funny. I'll share some of those with you in the coming episodes. Some of those moments that made me go, yeah, you know what? You told yourself you weren't that bad. But you did some damage along the way, sister. You damaged some relationships. You hurt some people's feelings. You were not there for people in the way you wanted to be. And so I want to end with this thought too. Whether you drink a bottle of beer a day or a bottle of whiskey a day, it does not matter. If alcohol is keeping you from showing up in your life the way you want to show up for the people who you want to show up for, it merits taking a look at. I love you all. I wish you a beautiful day. Please keep thinking about this issue. Talk about it out loud. What are your questions? What are your concerns? If you want to reach out to me privately, you can email me at pammyoutloud@gmail.com. You can also go to the Facebook page and engage in the conversation with others. I want that to be a judgment-free zone. I want it to be a positive place, safe place for people to have these conversations and ask the questions that matter to you. Have a beautiful week, everybody, and keep living your life out loud. Because we all know gritting your teeth gives you TMJ. Bye-bye, everybody.